don't know how the sound went off. I apologize for that. Let me put this over here, man, so I can watch it, man. I need to watch this right here. I need to watch this, man. Yeah. All right, so I can see what's going on. I see what's happening right here. All right, so that's better, right? Y'all can hear what I'm saying. What I was saying is that I want to invite everybody out to the webinar that I'm going to be conducting this Saturday at 11 a.m. It's going to be from 11 to 3 p.m. on Saturday, and it's going to be on Sunday from 1 p.m. to 4. So it's going to be a 2-day webinar. I haven't done a 2-day webinar in a long time, and the reason why it's going to be a 2-day webinar is because I have a lot of information to go over with you. I'm going to, just show y'all, just do like a brain dump, because this is going to probably be the last webinar I hold on secure party and all these type of things that you're interested in. Uh, so, you may want to really attend this. It's going to be more advanced than a lot of the other people's stuff that you hear out there, because, we're actually going to try to verify whether or not we can substantiate any of the things that we're making. Like in the case of discharging debt, do you have a right to discharge debt? And if you do they have a corresponding duty? And where does that duty derive from? You need to understand these things before you engage these people with certain things, because every time you discharge a debt, you're making a claim against the United States for the taking of the gold. That's what that's all about. There isn't any money. People are talking about going and getting Treasury Direct accounts. There's no money. You are the money. You are the money. You are the value. That's what you have to understand. This is the reason you want to be a real living soul as opposed to an artificial person, because artificial persons exist in the public and the public is bankrupt. Okay. Everything over on that side is bankrupt. So substance is derived from the private side. And this is what gives you as a man the capability of signing a bond, because a real living soul can make a promise to repay something. An artificial dead entity can't. It had to be some people behind all of this. So, all of these things are some of the things that, we are going to discuss. And you need to understand the foundation of a lot of this information, because a lot of it has gotten lost. Um, due to a lot of just basically lazy people. That's what I see out there. A lot of people, not really doing reading. You need to read a security agreement and understand what it is. You need to read every piece of paper that you file and know exactly what all of it is. Like, for instance, if you were to read a bond, you would understand why you don't argue with the United States, how the United States gets paid off of it, what it is that you're asking them to do, what are your corresponding duties. Like when you do a secure party process, you're supposed to agree to discharge debt. You're agreeing not to argue about anything. You're agreeing to discharge debt. So you're not going to go in court and challenge jurisdiction or anything like that. You're going to accept it for value, or something to that effect. You're going to treat it as a commercial matter as opposed to anything else. But y'all they started this thing where they trying to get y'all to say you don't have jurisdiction over me, which is ridiculous. You live in the United States of America. Can a person from another country come into our country and say you don't have jurisdiction over us? They're arresting illegal aliens all the time. What are you talking about? And these people really are from another country or foreign to the United States. So no, and being a state citizen don't exempt you from anything either. It doesn't exempt you from anything. What exempts you from something is your conduct. Okay, how do you conduct your affairs is what everybody is looking at. Not what you call yourself, not if you identify as something or anything like that. That don't have any basis in law or fact. Law deals with conduct of individuals, not your personal philosophies or anything like that. It's the conduct. Law is here to address conduct, and conduct is actions over words. But a lot of you think you can declare your way into a status, and that's just not true. The law, there's nothing about the law that functions like that. It's all about conduct. So, so the things that y'all are trying to assert, you got it backwards. And the reason for it, the only reason I'm trying to tell you, I'm not trying to tell you that you don't have remedies or things like that. I'm trying to tell you that a lot of the people who started this movement were ignorant. That's what I'm seeing. You know, and a lot of people fell into a lot of things because it sounded good. Now, the money aspect of everything is solid because there isn't any money. We live in a debt-based system. The Federal Reserve is a foreign entity to the United States. That's where you need to be focusing because you're crazy to think that there's not a single thing on this planet in some kind of way that is attached to money. Everything on this planet in some kind of way is attached to money. Money's behind everything. That's where you need to be focusing your attention. And the fact that you have value, and the fact that there isn't any money, and the fact that, you can become a private banker if you learn how to create value. If you learn how to negotiate it, you can do these things too. Just got enrolled at SPC University. Again, glad to be back at the time where you're headed in the direction you are. Okay, hey, thank you. I appreciate you. Can you actively do this while going to court? No, it's not. Let me ask you a question. People always ask me, can I do this while going to court? Okay, I can't go to court with you. So are you looking for somebody to tell you some magic words to go into court and say? Because that's not going to work because it's not a part of you. See, a lot of you don't respect sovereignty. See, y'all think sovereignty is something you can purchase or sovereignty is some words you can regurgitate and that you can go into court and all of a sudden it's supposed to be recognized. Sovereign is who you are as an individual, and who you are is what you know. All right. When you're a sovereign, you don't have to ask questions like that. If you got to ask me a question like that, no, you can't go into court. No, you can't go into court. Absolutely not. It'd take you 3 years to become functionally literate with this information. Ain't nobody, if anybody's trying to give you something, they in 2 weeks prepare you to go into court, it's unrealistic. You're gonna lose 99.9% of the time. It's just unrealistic. I would tell you to go get an attorney and make a plea deal because you're going to end up doing something. If it's serious, you could end up getting a lot more time. I've seen it happen a lot more time. So, it's like, nah, you don't need to try to do this. You desperate and you're looking for some way out. You're not going to get any help from the attorneys or anything like that. So now you're looking for magic remedies and shit like that. And you just a sucker for anybody out there who's going to sell you something. There is no magic remedies. Don't let these people lie to you. I studied this for 31 months before I think I did like 22 months before I even filed a UCC one. And at 31 months, I was still learning. And I was reading this shit every day because I had time to. And I was looking up words every day. I had a stack of words this high. And I was doing it for 31 months. And I don't feel like I was ready. I went into court my first time after I'd studied for 6 months. So I can't tell you to do something I ain't did. So if you ain't put in at least 6 months, how am I qualified to tell you, yeah, you can go into court. You got a pending case right now, and you can go into court and do this right now. No, you can't go into court and do this right now. This is a study. There's nothing magical about none of this shit. All people trying to do is give you some information like in a week, and you think you're gonna learn this in a week or two. You're in the wrong spot. That's all I can say to you. You're just in the wrong spot. Go look somewhere else. This not where you're gonna get the help you're looking for. It ain't here. You got to learn this stuff. And people are not trying to study the law. They're looking for quick and easy. They got some exigent circumstance that's impending, and they are looking for something quick and easy. And all you're gonna do is feed the beast because these people are just gonna make money off of you. That's it. That's why I got a school. I have a school. It's none of the things that y'all are taught. First of all, this notion that they don't have jurisdiction over me, y'all got to stop that. Y'all guys got to stop that. That's not true. You're mischaracterizing this corporate word that y'all keep utilizing, and then you're not being accountable for your conduct. You think that you can be unaccountable for your conduct and you can evade any type of accountability by declaring that, hey, that is an artificial person, I'm a real living soul, and the two don't mix. And that's not what a person is. That's not how the public operates. That's all I'm telling you right now. Let me tell you something. You'd be better focusing on public and private as opposed to an all cap name or some shit like that. Because they'll style the name in the caption of the pleading in the Christian appellation of your name. But that doesn't mean anything because it's still in the public. So if you just really hung up on all caps name like some people are, hey, they can write it a different way and still fool you. Because you don't understand that what is pertinent is that we're dealing with the public, not how a name is styled. Whether or not we are dealing with something public or private, that is the ultimate question. That is where we go to establish jurisdiction, whether something is public. Okay, and just because you declared some sort of status, that doesn't effectuate anything in the public, not at all. You can't declare I'm a private living man. You come into the public and kill somebody and think, well, hey, you don't have no jurisdiction over me, and you know that's not going to work. So, because if they don't have jurisdiction over you, they don't have jurisdiction over you for nothing. You can't start making exceptions for shit. So that's not how this operates. That's never how it operated. I see that. I've studied this for a long time. And it was meant to be what it was meant to do. It was meant to address the bankruptcy because all this started with an HGR 192 of June 5th, 1933, Public Law 73-10. That's what started all of this. That's before that we were a republic. The Federal Reserve wasn't mandatory. We were using gold and silver. We were engaged in private commerce. We weren't dealing with any of this until after 1933. So a lot of you need to be trying to get schooled on what happened in 1933, the Erie versus Tompkins Railroad decision in 1938, Perry versus the United States. I think that was in 1935 or 1936. But these cases are significant because they were turning points in the history of the country. And you need to understand how the country fundamentally changed during this time. The welfare state was introduced. So that gave the United States government more jurisdiction over more matters because everybody started getting social security numbers and started seeking benefits and privileges because they just bankrupt the country and then we were going through the Great Depression. So when all of this was established, it was established on the back of what happened in 1933. So what a lot of people started to do is they started to take elements of that. Oh, the all caps name. Well, these are two different jurisdictions. This is the domain of the artificial people. Okay, and this is the domain of the real living souls. And then, so it got you in this Roger Rabbit kind of thinking, where you have the humans and the cart and the Toonland people and everything. And so everybody's kind of thinking like that. This is where the straw man theory came in. But this is a mischaracterization of what a person is. And that's why when you look at it and you really understand what a person is, you're really going to look at it and say, okay, the person who thought this up, they didn't understand the law. I'm not going to call them stupid, but they had a very simplistic or simple-minded understanding of the law. They didn't understand some things. And you're looking at it like, okay, now, if you look at it in terms of public and private, okay, you have some sort of remedy there. But that's where you have to be looking at it. The problem is why y'all have so many problems is you're not looking at it correctly. Everything starts with what constitutes something public and what constitutes private and what encompasses both. Okay, and how you have to conduct yourself when you're in one or the other. You can't be a private citizen and thinking that you're going to come into the public and still be private. No, all your activity is going to get interpreted through the private system, and that's what the persons are for. They give you a personhood in the public when they catch you doing something, engaging in some sort of conduct, or whether or not you need some sort of welfare or assistance from the state. When you look at the Ashwander rule and rule number 6 in particular, it tells you that the court will not pass upon one that has on the constitutionality of a statute at the instance of one who has derived a benefit from it. So when you live in cities, cities are convenience stores. Everything in a city is for convenience. That's why you move here. You got corner stores, you got gas stations, everything is convenient. Okay, well, convenience is not a right. Convenient, and a lot of you try to interpret it like that. Well, it is. We, the American people, they the sovereigns, and they are the public servants. Oh, well, look, if you understood trust law, you would know the fallacy of that because the trustee has all the power. Once power has been given to him, he has all the power. He can refuse to give assets back to the settler, or if he has a discretionary power that has been delegated to him, that he can decide when he wants to make a distribution for the beneficiary. He's responsible for the corpus of the trust. When the United States government, they act in the capacity of like a trustee. So it would very much help you to understand how trust actually work, not what the echo chambers are telling you, because they'll tell you can put a foreclosed home in a trust and it'll protect it from a foreclosure. And that's a fraudulent transfer all day long. Say, where do they get the right? Where do you get the right to take benefits and privileges from the state? Say, why you ain't asking that question? They not doing nothing without cause. You coming to them first. They didn't come to you. You went to them. You probably went to their hospital and had your children there. You probably put your children in public school. You probably went to public school. You probably got a job right now that you're working. You probably got a social security number and took some VA benefits or social security benefits. You probably got some money for them PPP loans, something like that. Don't be you asking where did they get the right? I can give you a long motherfucking list of where they get the right to. I give you a long fucking list where they get the right to. You taking benefits and privileges from the government. You don't want to live like the Amish. You're not trying to do that. So don't sit here and pump fake and shit like that. Y'all be coming in here acting like y'all these, where did they get the right to do this? When you a motherfucking dependent. Yeah, how you sound. You a dependent. And you gonna ask me where do they have the right to do this? Man, get out of here. Instead of dealing with a bullshit courtroom, make your livelihood from creating a school. Well, I do make my livelihood. I did create a school, and that is where I make my livelihood. That's what I did. That's exactly what I did. I have a school. I teach class. We have class. We go through cases. We look at principles of law. We see how they are applied in different situations. That's what we do at SBC University. So I'm getting my students ready to understand how to administer a private trust right now because that's very important. That's very integral to all of these different processes for you having a trust. That's why when you look at the secure party process, they had a 98 number, which is for your trust, a foreign trust, and then two, four, 5 numbers. And then you use the entity classification to place those two entities under the trust. The trust is supposed to own them because the entities that give you control of your estate, but the original liability and ownership falls onto the back of the trust. But you need to know how to put a trust together. That's why I'm gonna do this webinar because you're still gonna have to understand how to put a trust together, and that's gonna take about 8 to 9 months of continuous reading of case law and understanding administration. You're not gonna get that in 1 or 2 days. I can't sit here and just sell you a dream. A lot of people you understand what a trustee is, what a trustor, settlor, grantor, creator is, what a trust raise or a trust corpus or a trust protector, or of course beneficiaries, what trust capital units are, units of beneficial interest. Some of you may have that, but all that shit is basic shit. You're supposed to get that stuff you can get in like the first couple of days. You can get that down. What you're not going to be understanding is the different scenarios that a trust can be placed into, how equity is applied to it, because a trust is a right solely enforceable in equity. Y'all like to use this exclusive equity term. Well, exclusive equity would apply in a situation like that, even though I've never seen that term in a law book. Not to saying it don't, I just may have never seen it. But yes, there is some things that are adjudicated strictly in equity, and trust is one of those situations. The bankruptcy court is a court of equity. That's why it's a bankruptcy trustee. It's a court of equity. So in equity, you have to approach everything with clean hands and in good faith. This is the reason you do an administrative process and you initiate things, because every time you do an administrative process, you're trying to procure clean hands and good faith. All right, clean hands and good faith. And you got to be able to document that. You have to have a documentary footprint that establishes that you can place in evidence. But so you're going to need to understand also how the evidence rules work in court. You're going to need to know that you just can't fly by the seat of your pants and just hope everything goes okay. You got to understand, okay, how do I file paperwork? How do I use a process server? Okay, do you understand that when you file paperwork, also have the responsibility to provide copies for the corresponding counsel? Okay, these are things these are basic things you need to know. This is not sophisticated. This is all like basic shit that you should know. And if you don't know any of it and you're asking me, should you go into court? You know, if you're asking me that, what you're looking for are magic words. You're looking for magic words and they don't exist. You can test some things out, but see, so much of this depends on um, body language. You know, you can't go in there and read shit from a paper. Nobody's taking you serious. You need to be able to say objection, Your Honor, hearsay. If counsel wishes to testify, please have him take the stand and swear in so he can subject himself to cross examination. You got to talk like that. You got to talk with authority. You got to talk with confidence. You got to understand the tricks the court will engage in. When you say objection, you know, you're supposed to be listening for sustained or overruled. If you don't hear that, I take exception to the honorable judge's refusal to rule on my objection. Would you please enter sustained or overruled into the record so I can preserve the error? You got to be able to think on your feet when somebody says something, because they're going to try to throw you off. And when you know what you're talking about, you can think on your feet because everything is in the subconscious mind, and you can only impress things in the subconscious mind through repetition, not reading it off of paper, not paying somebody some money. I think I have a problem with this camera over here. I have to check this camera out and see what's going on with it. But anyway, hey, listen, let me tell you this, because I didn't mean to stay on long tonight. But what I would like for you to do is this Saturday, we're having a webinar. So these are things you need to understand. Like when you're filing paperwork, you need to see, why are you filing a UCC1? Why are you even presenting a UCC1 in a court case if you're going to do that? Why would you do that? What's the reason for it? You think it's just going to see, a lot of people will say, well, that don't work. And they just as illiterate as everybody else. A lot of things I teach are not to get a case dismissed. A lot of things I teach is so you can discover what is going on. It's like, okay, you got to understand, like, so you can know how to approach your remedy correctly or to substantiate your position. If you're saying, well, this is really a civil matter instead of criminal, well, how are you going to establish that? Because if it's civil, then it's some sort of pecuniary interest the court has in the matter. So it's going to be satisfied through some sort of commercial remedy. But people who listen to all this, they don't understand all of that. They don't understand what I'm talking about. Oh, you're too sophisticated, Yusuf. Well, this is for sophisticated people because it's law. It's not for the average, extra average dude or something like that who is a weekend warrior who think he can just get by because that's what he's been doing. It's for people who have a standard of excellence about themselves. Those are the people who can be sovereign. So if you want to look in my description of this video right now, I got a link to the webinar. It's $297. All right, that's not a lot for what I'm going to be presenting to you. I really think I'm you know, chumping myself off for it because I'm doing 2 days. I'm doing 8 hours, and I'm going to go through a lot of different things, a lot of pieces of information. So if you really want to try to understand if you're just interested in understanding, like, for what is a secure party process? Why would I do that? Do I need to do that? You know, what were the GSA bonds utilized for? How do I put together a negotiable instrument? Can I really change a voucher into a money order and present it for some sort of payment or some sort of obligation? You know, do they have jurisdiction over me? You know what I'm saying? It's like, I'm gonna tell you what you got to stay away from. You got to stay away from the angry patriot groups. You got to stay away from those individuals. So they counterproductive because first of all, they don't take accountability for anything. They looking at the government as evil. And the reason you have to watch people like that is because that's where imposters can hide. Like if we got people that have infiltrated us, okay, a lot of those guys, to me, their views are kind of like socialists or communists or Marxists, and certain, they want to try to overthrow the government, and I don't see how you can want to overthrow the government when you don't even have a proper civic education in the first place. I got a problem with that. All right, so we're dealing with either illiteracy or we're dealing with deception. And either way, you got to be cautious, you know. So you got to be cautious in this space. This is not a space for emotion. This is a space for intellectual people who are involved in intellectual pursuit. It's not a space for emotion. So when you see them using emotion, you know they don't have a hold on anything, not on the truth, not on nothing. As a matter of fact, it's fertile ground for deception. They don't want to read anything that have to do with the law books, and when you read it to them, they start disrespecting it. Oh, the judges don't make the law. We have something called judge-made law. We have a three-headed hydra. Okay, we have what's called separation of powers. We don't have no one head in the United States of America. We have the legislative, executive, and judicial branch of government, and they work in concert with each other. And if you don't understand that, you ain't nowhere close to being a sovereign, and you need to get out the way, and you don't need to be talking at all in no space anywhere. Because all you're going to do is get somebody fucked up. You're supposed to know this basic shit you should know. So, Saturday at 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. and Sunday from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. we're going to be going through a lot of stuff. I'm just going to take it back to the old school, and I'm going to just go through a lot of, a lot of paperwork, show y'all things that, I know y'all interested in. You want to see what I know. All right, I'm going to show you what I know. I've been doing this for a very long time. I didn't make up, and let me say this too. Let me give this caveat. I didn't create any of this. All this was in existence when I came on the scene. What I did was study it for a long time. And the reason I studied it the way that I did is because when I came into this, I had a very serious matter I had to contend with, and so I couldn't depend. I was reading the information and I said this sounds good, but I couldn't solely depend on that. So simultaneously, I was studying statutes and rules of procedure and things of that nature as well, helping people with their cases and things because I had to make sure that I understood the entire gamut of everything because I felt like my life depended on it. So I couldn't put all my eggs in one basket. And I understood principles early on. So this is what I reasoned. I said, well, if this SPC stuff or any of this stuff is legitimate, there should be some underlying principles that they share with statutes, common law, and everything else because the principles are universal and they don't change. So when you understand the principle behind something now, that helps you also start to determine whether or not this information has any legitimacy to it or not. But there are a lot of other factors you have to know. You have to know jurisdiction. You have to understand the difference between public and private. The public, everything starts with the laws of God. Okay. And we don't have to use the word God if you want. We can say Allah, we can say the all, we can say Om, we can say whatever words you want to use, however you want to describe the creator of the boundless universe. Okay. It really doesn't matter. Okay. But how do we evidence that there is a God that exists? Well, the evidence of God is nature. Okay, nature. So nature has immutable laws that govern it. Okay, and so we can experience that through empirical evidence. We can experience that. That's observation. This is observation through reason and intelligence. Man has observed nature, and we have concluded that there are principles of nature that all of nature operates off of, and that is mentalism, correspondence, vibration. Everything in creation vibrates. Scientists have proved this. Polarity, everything has two sides: up, down, right, left, in, out, hard, soft, daylight, good, evil, yin, yang, fast, slow, in, out, yes, no, public, private. There are two sides to everything. There are two sides to everything. There's a rhythm for everything. There's a season. There's a rhythm to everything. There's a gender to everything. This is why you can look at the arguments that the Democrats are making and you can see that it's ridiculous. Well, I'm trans and all of this stuff. Well, Mother Nature says there's only two genders, male and female. X and Y and double X. And they will try, and that's why they want to deny nature. If you talk to those people, they will say nature, there aren't any, they'll deny all the things I'm saying right now because they're basically atheists. And you definitely can't allow people like that in leadership position because that mindset is a chaotic mindset. It can only lead to chaos. When you don't adhere to any type of structure, the result is chaos. So they agents of chaos, and that's why they've been put in place because they're trying to bring in a new world order. And for that to happen, they got to tear down the old and bring in the new. So what you're looking at are agents of chaos. These women are just lapdogs for these people. If you're a feminist, you're just being used. If you're talking about white supremacy, you're being used. You're being used because gods don't concentrate on things like that. Gods don't concentrate. Gods are preoccupied with creating the world that they want by visualizing it through imagination, concentration, and visualization. They're constantly involved in that because those are our tools of trade. All right, our imagination, our creative faculties, and we're creating the world that we want. Gods are preoccupied with that. They're not preoccupied, worried about whether the white man is doing some sort of racism against me, because they understand how the laws of the universe operate. You get what you think about all the time, whether it's good or bad. If you choose to think about, like I'll say, like with me, I've had a problem lately watching on YouTube a lot of videos where they're talking about the problem in relationships. With females and male, how the women acting like men, and they want to be strong and independent, want to chase careers and don't want to raise children and want to kill half their babies and all that. And I'm hearing all that all the time. All that's going to do is lead to me having a negative opinion about women when I don't even need to listen to none of that because I just need to visualize the woman that I want. And that's what'll be brought to me. I don't need to focus on what I don't want. I need to focus on what I do want. And that's just a distraction. That's really gossip. Just like kind of like a gossip type thing. That men don't gossip. We are busy building and creating. That's what the God in us. And I'm watching some show though. Where this chick is talking about, what a woman can do. I mean, let me tell you something. If you're watching me, first and foremost, I the woman receives everything from the man. Okay, that's what gender dictates. The feminine energy is receptive. All right, so it is nothing without the male energy because it has to be fed. And what is, and this is why you have to be very cautious with the feminine energy because the feminine energy can take information from any male. That's why it's so detestable for a woman to be promiscuous because you're tainting yourself with these different energies and so forth. This is why men all throughout history they valued virginity. Because first of all, the energy that you have will heavily depend on how successful a man is going to be. And if you've been indiscriminate with your womb, you screwing all types of men and all different calibers of men, that ain't nothing but a womb of confusion. In history, they used to have brothels where they would only allow wealthy men to frequent, and the women in there were only allowed access to wealthy men. And those men didn't mind going there because all the men who were there were wealthy. They understood how energy operates, but you don't understand how it operates, and you just give yourself to anyone freely, and then you want a high value man or something like that, and you're going to no, you're gonna create, you know, a man, all you have to do is monitor real quick when you get with a woman, is your money going up or down? Because you should be able to make more money and also trick on her or do whatever it is you want to do, but your money still should be increasing to accommodate that. But if you tricking off on her and it ain't increasing, everything is just going down, you done hooked up with some energy you need to get away from as quickly as possible. I don't care how good she looks. And that's what people understood. There's a reason Mother Nature put a hymen on a woman, a seal. Nobody talks about that. This is the elephant that's in the room that nobody wants to talk about. They don't want to talk about these subjects because they don't like to delve into topics dealing with morality and family and structure. You like to blame the government for all your ills, but if you look at your life and how you conduct your life, a lot of you conduct your lives very close to animals. All you do is sleep, eat, and reproduce. What value do you bring to the world? Some of you act like animals. Y'all doing the same thing dogs do. Y'all screwing behind each other. That's what dogs do. How do you distinguishing yourself from the animals? will be my question. You know what I'm saying? It's like, where is it used to be a time where black people had a certain pride about themselves, a certain it's just like now it's just a damn free fall. You do whatever you want if it feels good, and don't judge me when you do it. You better not judge me. I'm judging the shit out of your ass because I need to know whether I need to be around the individual. You can do whatever you want to do, but I don't need to be around you. Okay, because there are consequences to anything that you engage in. And if you engage in an activity and you don't know the consequences, that by definition is operating in ignorance. You're operating in ignorance because you don't know the consequences of your actions. Everything has a cause and effect. This is why it is very important to the first thing that everybody should be taught as children are the laws of nature. This is why the Jews are so advanced over everyone because they have a rite of passage for their children, a bar mitzvah and a bat mitzvah, where they're responsible for keeping the divine laws. Y'all have no shit like that because you don't believe in it. You just believe it's some heathen shit. I understand why they use the word heathen. I understand you ain't trying to learn the natural laws. We talk about religion. You say, "Oh, well, Christianity ain't no good for us." Let me tell you something about the people talking about Christianity. Okay, first and foremost, all the religions, okay, are you have to look for the principles in the religions. There are principles that govern. All right. You don't look at the characters. If you grew up like I'm really appreciative of my grandmother. When I grew up, she used to read to me Aesop's fables. All right, this is where the moral to the story came from. And in some of those stories, there'd be animals talking, but there was an important lesson to learn there. They get caught up. What did Jesus really live or not? Was he a white man, a black man? Is this the white man's religion? And that don't do. I need. I don't even know how this started. I'm gonna have to get off, y'all. I've been on this too long. I've been on here too long, just running my mouth. That right there is just telling me it's time for me to get off. So I got to get off. Uh, Once again, because I start preaching. I start going into a zone and start talking and everything, and it started taking me way off track from what I was originally talking about. Because the reason why is because I'm gonna tell you why I get off track like that is because there's a lot of and being a sovereign, there's a moral aspect to all of this. This is why I'm always talking about the natural laws. You have to be able to govern yourself in a certain way. A lot of the people, that's why they join these secret societies and things like that, because of the training that is provided in that. But you don't have to join that organization to get that training. But it begins with you having to understand what the natural laws are. You got to at least start there. If you don't start there, you're kind of like an animal. They're not, they're looking at you like an animal or something like that because you don't know how to govern yourself accordingly. You operating in the blind, and you have this power that you don't know how to use. You have this power you don't know how to use. You're like a baby with an AK-47. So you're creating all type of chaos in your life and in the lives of others because you don't understand your power. So now you want to live a life of victimhood and blame. And always concentrate on everything that's outside yourself instead of what's inside of you. Like it says in the Bible in Luke 17:21, look ye neither here nor there, for the kingdom of heaven is in you. Some people try to translate as amongst you. That don't even make no sense. Jesus said, look, seek ye first the kingdom, and all things will be added to you. Then he tells you, look ye neither here nor there, for the kingdom of heaven is in you. See, that's a universal principle. Okay. That's going back to the oracle of Delphi. Know thyself, and to thyself be true. When you when you look at it through that lens, now I can go into Egypt and I can get into Tahuti and I can see certain things that were said that survived up today, and now you see it being taught through mainstream religion, okay? Or Buddha, we listen to Buddha, and he says something Desire is the key to suffering. And Jesus say, what Jesus say? He said, do not, covet the things of this world. They both got the same teaching that but it's different cultures that utilizing different scenarios and different type of examples, different methods of teaching that they're people. And everybody gets caught up in it when you have to understand there's only one truth. There's only one truth. And truth does not change. Truth is not subject to change. So you begin looking at what doesn't change, and what doesn't change are natural laws. So this is where we can understand where truth can be found. But you have to have some baseline that you're operating from. What value should a private man be bringing to the public? Whatever you want. What do you mean? Whatever you want. That's the whole thing. You can do what you want, when you want, how you want, where you want, whenever you want. That's freedom. You should be able to use your creative faculties to do whatever you want. Whatever you want. Everybody's not the same. Some people have very big dreams. Other people they content with a little. That's on you what you want to do. You're valued, but you should be trying to do something because you were given a gift. Remember in the Bible, we talk about the talents, and one person just buried his talent, and he called him, "Oh, wicked servant." You know that was taught. You have a talent that you were given, and you're not going to try to seek your purpose while you're here on the planet or anything like that. What are you going to do? You got a purpose here. You have a talent. Everybody, God has blessed everybody with one. Everybody has it. So that's your contribution. That's your contribution. Hey, look, y'all. This Saturday at 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., I'm having a webinar. The link is in the description. We're going to be going over a lot of different things on Saturday. Um, it's a certain character that goes with, trying to be sovereign, trying to do these things that you're trying to do. And that's why I say you can't be around the angry people and everything, because that's not the character. They should be like gentlemen at all times. You go into court, it's a gentleman's game. It's a gentleman's game, y'all go in there acting like beasts and animals and shit like that, but you can't do that. You need to wear a suit when you come into court. You should have a suit on. You should be appropriately dressed. All right, these are things that you should do, especially if you want somebody to, something to go your way. You know what I'm saying? It's a venue that you're going to. So it's like a stage play, a suit is a costume. That's all it is. It's a costume. Put on the costume when you get through doing the stage play, take it off. Put on the costume. There is no quick remedy. I'm not saying you can't access a remedy quickly, but for a person that is not trained in any of this information and you just telling them to go into court and say this right here, it's not going to fare well for them. It's just not. You need to really know some things. And what gives you confidence is not only when the information that you're reading, but the things that you can substantiate. Okay, but you got to really make sure that you're actually substantiating it too, and that you're not going to fall victim to, you know, a feeble comprehension, that you have, that you thinking you understand what this is saying, but you really don't know what it's saying. That's happening a lot. And you got to be cautious about that. You got to look up every word. You got to read every sense of the word. You need to go to the law library if it's a statute, and you need to read the case law that's under it and see how the judges applied the statute, how they construed it with facts that have appeared before them. This is when you're doing real study and you're really trying to understand this stuff. But just to be on the internet, going into echo chambers and arguing with each other and applying labels to things and saying, well, the 14th Amendment applies, you'll see about 50 people make a comment. Like if you go on my other video, dudes over there talking left and right. Ain't nobody posted nothing really that can substantiate what they saying. They just making a lot of wild claims and mad at me because I won't roll with them. because I'm too strong-minded, to fall for their stupidity. It's like same thing with flat earthers. They get mad at me and shit. It's like, no, man, I don't view you as intelligent. Your reasoning is faulty, but you don't hear it. You don't see it. You don't see the fault in your reasoning. I understand how the horizon operates. All these different things that you can't explain. That what the way that you're explaining it doesn't make sense. Everything is a big conspiracy and a stage play. Everything is not a conspiracy, and everything is not a big stage play. Have we been lied about a lot of things? Yes, we have. And in particular, about the nature of reality. That's the main thing. About the nature of reality is the main thing. That's the main thing they don't want you to understand. That's why everything that you're engaging in out here in this world is a distraction. It's all a distraction. They don't care what you focus your attention on as long as it's not inside of you. They don't care what you focus your attention on. You can focus on anything, the game, your job, hustling, women, eating. They don't care. I just don't never, ever, 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 ever look inside. Don't start there. I mean, they want you to take a plea deal in traffic court. I mean, there are many different ways to defeat a ticket. You can challenge it. But challenging jurisdiction ain't the appropriate thing in traffic court. It just don't make sense to me. But I guess you can do it if you want to, because if you're operating a motor vehicle, however you want to call it, it's a public safety. See, the problem with the sovereign community on the right to travel, they say you have a right to travel. Yes, you have a right to travel. What you don't have a right is a right to travel without regulation. See, y'all don't want to add that little part onto it on the end. You keep saying how they keep tricking all of you is they say we have a right to travel. You do. And when you look up the right to travel, it means the ability just to move from state to state. It doesn't have anything in the definition that talks about the mode of travel. Okay, but when you elect to choose a mode of travel that could potentially injure another human being, the state is going to step in and exercise their police power in order to regulate that activity. Okay, they have the right to do it. They have a constitutional duty to do that. Okay, so I can't roll with you. It's not that I'm an agent or anything. It's just that now I'm seeing what I'm contending with individuals that don't have a proper civic education. And I'm not rolling with that shit. It's like, nah, man, you're not going to pull me down in that mire of stupidity and ignorance. I'm not getting in that. I'm not getting in that playpen with you. I think too highly of myself to do that. I'm not doing that. It's like, nah, man, especially if it's something that's very easily discernible, where you're reading it and you're saying, okay, these motherfuckers don't even read. They're not even reading. Hey, look, I'm gonna have to get off, y'all. Anyway, but I know y'all like, man, he tripping with the camera. I know I gotta check this camera, man. I probably need to replace it with one of these right here. I check this camera. Is there a difference between citation and a moving violation? I don't know the significance of that. I really don't know. If I get a traffic ticket, I probably would just use this app called Off the Record, and that just take care of it. I don't even go into the courtroom. I would use that. Don't appear on your driving record or nothing like that. Just use Off the Record. But if you want to go in there, contend and argue jurisdiction or something like that, you can. But I just don't. A lot of the things that I see in this space, also the problems that people are having, it has to do with money. It's a certain demographic of individuals who don't have any money. And that's why it leads to the mentality of what they're concerned with, like traffic citations and the utility bills and things like that, because they don't have any money. But the reason you don't have any money is because you're not exercising the power that inheres in you. Okay. That's why you don't have any money. It's nobody else's fault. It's just that you haven't turned on the switch. And people try to tell you about the switch and you don't even believe it's there. So they have to get past that first, getting you to believe that there's a switch and then showing you how to use it once you start to believe it. So, those hurdles, but that's the reason why you're broke. It don't have anything to do with Trump. It don't have anything to do with the economy. It don't have anything to do with white people or anything like that. It has everything to do with the fact of where you put your focus at. That's what it has to do with. But anyway, look, link is in the description. Hope to see you on Saturday. I'll see you on Saturday. Join, and I'll see you there. And it's going to be a very good webinar.